Hey guys, Code Red Mining here. So today I want to talk about, I did my pads, so thanks to Kritical pads, they make two factory spec pads that are 20 kilowatt pads, and they're this awesome green color for a lot of the cards that you know that have a lot of heat problems, so 3080, 3080 Ti's, 3090s. They don't really have 3070 Ti's. They said they're looking to acquire those GPUs, and then they'll actually make the pads for those. So I was in contact with them during this. I ran into some issues with doing the pads on this 3080 Ti. I used to have two of these. I ended up trading one. I think I talked about it in a previous video. You can check it out. So okay, so here is, I'm gonna try to make this quick. Obviously, I couldn't do it while I was doing the card. The old pads were heavily degraded. It was like a 3-hour pad change because of the issues I ran into, and because the required amount of cleaning with Q-tips and isopropyl alcohol was pretty outrageous. The pads were just heavily disintegrated, and you know, not that cleanup paste takes long, but it was hard as a rock. The quality of pads used was not very good. So okay, so here's just the card mining right now. This is after the fact. My attempts are feeling much happier now. So there's just a look at the Asus 3080 Ti Tough, just so we know what card we're talking about. So I'm going to get rid of this image. So here is a look at it from the back. These four right here, these four screws, are what holds these two pieces on to the fan sink. So you need to remove these four, and then there is two down here, and then there is two right here. See them? There's one right there and one right there. Then there's two right down here on the heat sink. So once you remove those, so these four, and then this thing, be careful, it's spring loaded. It will shoot off, or you don't want to break anything, so just be careful. Once you take that off, the only thing that'll be holding this to the heat sink is just the stickiness of the pads and the paste. So you just do a little moving and twerking, and that's right, I said twerking, and you'll be able to wiggle it off. So let's move on. So this was what it looked like. So I got off the heat sink, and this is what it looked like. This is on the underside, but I just wanted to give an example. This is what it looked like on the front side too. You can see how degraded the pads were, all the oil and everything like that, and I went through and cleaned this all up as best I could with Q-tips and isopropyl alcohol, tried to get all the grease off, tried to get it looking better. Obviously it was not looking too good. So yeah, okay, so there's that. So here are some interactive images that actually are awesome. So if you buy the pads from Critical Gaming, they have these images on their site. You can zoom in and stuff. Obviously, I just downloaded them, so they're saved. But okay, so this is what it looks like when you take it off. There's this heat sink. So this heat sink is not actually held on by anything. It's just held on by the pads. So yeah, just keep that in mind. There's your paste. Obviously, you would remove your paste from both sides. So okay, so obviously you're gonna remove all the old pads. So yeah, we'll come back to these images. We'll reference back to these images periodically. So let's move on here. I said I don't want to make this video very long. So okay, so here were some pads on the back plate. These are ones I put on. They're harder pads, and they actually didn't work. They were too thick, which we'll get into. So okay, let's move on. So okay, yeah, like here's that's a tiny picture. Screw that. All right, so here's what it looked like. I peeled it apart. Obviously, this is after I put on the pads. So you got this heat sink. I don't know what the exact word is for it. So I went ahead. I cleaned the pads off this. I cleaned all of it with isopropyl alcohol, Q-tips. Cleaned this off, and a lot of them were like just hard as a rock. Cleaned this off, and then I took that off, and underneath there is the VRAM, and there's pre-cut pieces for each one of these. It's pretty basic and straightforward which pieces go where, and then there's two additional pieces that you'll notice that they're much thicker, and they go right here and right here. I ran into some issues, which I'll show you guys here in a second, but as you can see, in order to remove this and release the back plate, you can see there's the remaining screws. There's a few more around. I believe it was 6 screws. Once you release that, you'll be able to just basically remove the back plate. Let's see here. Let's get into, so originally I removed the back plate. I put these pads on. These were 3mm pads. I was like, okay, this is fine, that'll work. So I put it back on. This is what it looked like. You can see how thick it was. You can almost see like a bend to the card. And stupidly, I didn't replace the paste, which was stupid. I ended up just taking it right back off and repasting it. So I repasted it. I fired it back up. Where's the image? I know, I thought I saved it. Maybe not. Swore I did, but I guess I didn't. So immediately upon boot up, I was reaching like 78 core. I had to shut it down immediately. Obviously, there was an issue, so I pulled off the heat sink again, and this is, so I put fresh paste on. As you can see, I had no contact with the GPU die. So just keep in mind that if you're having issues, make sure that you're always replacing your paste, because having that fresh seal with the paste from the heat sink to the die and creating that new connection with that new liquefied thermal paste is important. It creates like almost like a sticky like web in between the two, and if you use old thermal paste, that old thermal paste is going to be kind of hard. It's going to already have made that initial like form. So don't be dummies and try to reuse paste. Just paste is not that expensive. I think this is Thermal Grizzly. I bought this giant tube ages ago, and I think I've used it for like 50 GPUs at this point, and I still am using the same tube. I always cover, I don't do like the little dot in the middle. I actually just spread it out over the GPU die. But as you can see, I was having no contact. So during these points, I was in contact with Critical Pads, being like, hey, is there something I'm missing? What's going on? So as you can see, so remember I spoke about the additional, so these are the 2 pads that are actually added on, that they add in. So obviously you have all these front pads that are original to spec, and then they add on these go on top of the little heat sink right there to transfer more heat from that little heat sink, and then the pads underneath. So my thought was like, well, those pads are causing the issue, they're too thick. So I ended up taking them off. As you can see, I repasted, so I took them off, I repasted, stuck it back on. This was the end result. So then my understanding was, okay, it has to be these 3mm back, the 3mm pads I stuck on the back. And you can, like I said, you can see where it's I mean, it's pretty thick. And the only thing that, holds on, that grips to the, oh shoot. The only thing that grips to these cards is the 4 square, and the other 4 screws that attach to the heatsink don't actually do much pressure. So you need to make sure that you're not pushing hard, but you want to make sure that everything is extremely snug when you're putting on the square bracket that attaches to the heatsink, because that's what's going to give the pressure that's needed to cause that contact between the two. So okay, I decided to take these 3mm pads off. I had contact Critical Games. They were awesome. They got back to me like almost right away, and it was like 10 o'clock on, I think, a Saturday or Sunday, and they got back to me right away. They were super helpful. They asked, hey, can you send me these images? There's actually 2 different versions of the 3080 Ti. I want to make sure yours is the same one. And I sent them all the pictures they required. They were super helpful, got back to me. I went ahead and just took the initiative, and I was like, I'm going to go ahead and assume it's the 3mm plates, the 3mm pads on the back plate, and I had told them that in the email. I didn't think it was their 3mm front pads. Obviously, they do this for a living, and I want 20 kilowatt pads on my GPU versus those other ones. Those other ones are, let me see here, I got the brand right here. They're from the Tech Century video. They're the NAB Cooling Super Max, and these are 15 watt pads, versus the Critical pads are 20 watt ones, or I always say kilowatt for some reason. I feel like that's but it's like 6 watt MK is what it's referred to, or like this. So those ones the Critical pads would be 20 watt/MK pads, and so those ones I had on the back were 15W/MK pads, and they're kind of like, so there's a couple different kinds of pads. There's these pads, and they can be higher end pads, they can be lower end pads, but they're like almost like a hard. They're like hard, and they don't form right. And I'm not a fan of those types of pads. I like pads that are soft and putty and form to what you're attaching them to. And so luckily the Critical pads are those soft forming pads, unlike those ones I had on the back plate here. These ones right here, they're kind of that harder. They're not as soft and putty like as the different style pads. Now, there's nothing wrong with these pads. A lot of people have a lot of success with these pads. I have these pads on other cards and have no issues. I just think for this situation, the 3mm pads were too thick, and it was causing my issue with the contact on the die. And also, adding these additional 3mm pads right here, along with the 3mm on the back plate, was my issue. So what I went ahead and did was I went ahead and removed these, and I didn't have any good 1mm pads around, but I had these cheap Amazon 1mm pads. So I put those on there. Obviously, it is what it is. The only way I'll replace those pads is if I need to, if I have issues. As you can see, here is the image after I put those on. The contact isn't great. I think I probably would have needed 1.5 or 2mm, but sadly all I had at the time was 1mm. That image right there, it looks like they have better contact than what they do in that image. I made sure to inspect that, because if they weren't having any contact, I just would have took them off, because it's pointless to keep them on. And just remember, I have one of these magnetic pads. You can see it right here. So I just drew a square and pretend that's the GPU. And as I take the GPU apart, I set the screws exactly how I take them off. Or let's say, I do the front side of the car. I set it right here, and then I'll jump down. If I'm going to be taking off the back plate, I'll jump down and make like another set right here. So it's important that you remember which screws go where. Do not over torque stuff. I use a iFixit kit. I love the magnetic drivers. All the bits are high quality. They don't strip. They don't strip stuff randomly. They're great as far as like they have the little ratchet or the little sockets that you may need. So sometimes you have like where you put in your HDMI ports. I can't think of what that's called, but there's little tiny screws with nuts sometimes on some graphics cards, and that's like one of the main pieces that holds on the front plate or back plate, and you need to remove those. And so in the iFixit kit, they actually have a small socket for those, which is extremely nice. And it's magnetic too. I am terrible about dropping screws, so magnetic is important to me. So yeah. So I will say one thing that was nice about these Critical pads is once I stuck them on, I didn't have to worry about them falling off like these shitty little 1mm pads. Like I'd be going to like set the back plate back on the other one and they'd be falling off or anything like that. The Critical pads, once I stuck them on, they were just super sticky, super high quality. I was extremely impressed and very happy with the product itself and the customer service that they gave me. So okay, there's the end result. So once I did that, I put these back on. First I loaded up and I actually had problems again. I was like, okay, what is going on? So I took them back off, and I looked and I was like, okay, I'm having good contacts. What is the issue? So what I did after that was I actually, let's see here, I don't have the image, do I? What I did was I did the square first. So I did this piece first, and I made sure I didn't push really hard, but I was firm in what I did. I wanted to make sure I had good contact. And then obviously I put fresh paste on again because I had taken it back apart, and that new seal is important. And then I did the other 6 screws. I actually forgot to put them on, and I loaded up the graphics card, and I was getting good temps, 92. I wasn't going above 94 on the memory. I wasn't going above 60 on the core. And now it was cooler last night. I will actually pull over this rig and we will take a look now and look at my current temps. They're a little warmer because it's a little warmer out. As you can see, I'm at 62 core, 96 temps. Before I did the pads, I would have been at 106 memory. I would have been at probably 64 C on the core. This card just doesn't deal with heat very well, even with the brand new pads. Now, I may buy some sheets of Kritical pads. I'll reach out to them, and so I can put pads on the back plate. Here we go. See, this is why we need the 3070 pads right here. Kritical pads. I need these for my shitty Zotac, and my EVGA 3070 Ti's do okay, but there's a reason why this rig is not inside my tent. These are just a lot of my hottest cards, or problem cards, or cards that need extra TLC. So I'm happy with 96C. I'm happy with 62C compared to what I was getting previously. I think that's a win. Obviously, we'll see how it tolerates here into the hot summer days. But I think, like I said, worst comes to worst, I add 20 watt pads to the back, and I think that'll solve my issue. So yeah, if there's any questions, I wish I could have filmed it when I was doing this, but it just wasn't an option. Like I said, there was so much cleanup and just so much stupidness, and I film with my phone still. I don't have a fancy camera. I mean, as you guys can probably tell, I try to put out the best quality content I can, but yeah, it is what it is. If there's anybody that needs help with changing their pads on most GPUs, please feel free to reach out, join the Discord and reach out. I'm usually around if you ping me in my own Discord, and I will help you as long as I'm available, and if I'm not around right then, I'll help you as soon as I become available. So that is it. Like I said, direct any questions toward me. Please go check out Kritical pads. They were awesome, helpful, great quality product. Come also mine with me on Ezil and dual mine Zilliqa and Ethereum. Link is below, and we're going to call the video at that. Thanks, guys. Bye.